Yeah. Wait, should we record this? Because I saw this on my feed and I was going to leave a comment and I saw your comment on it. And then I
Yeah.
didn't even end up leaving my comment.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay.
Okay. When you start your business, no one ever prepares you for what's in store. So finding someone else who just gets it is sometimes the thing that can keep you pushing towards those big vision board business goals.
We're turning our Zoom coffee chats into a weekly, unfiltered podcast for online business owners. There were so many good ones, we always wanted to record them and repurpose them for content anyways. And that's on being a social media manager.
I'm Jessica Sheehy.
And I'm Madeleine Digan. And this is
hashtag
managed. I think it's perfect.
I like it. I like it.
I'm back home in Indiana, and my weekend thought is just how many people am I going to run into that I know that I don't want to run into? So I definitely, when I've been getting ready, when I go out, I definitely am making an effort to, like, not like to try hard, like a pick me, but like, where I'm just like, I want to be put together because if I run into, I don't even think any of my exes live here anymore. And not that it wouldn't matter, but where it's just like those frenemies or anybody, it's just like,
Yeah.
hi,
Yeah.
hi, I'm successful. How are you?
Right.
That's that.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I just threw this on.
It's
This
on.
is so casual.
Yeah.
Woke up like this. You're like full beat.
Yep.
Yeah, but no, that's so accurate. I feel like, and do you feel like when you, maybe this is just what I notice, like cause now I'm kind of like living
Mhm.
back in like hometown now, but temporarily. But I feel like when I do run in or bump into someone, I then proceed to bump into like two, three, four more people. I'm like,
Oh,
what's going
100%.
on? Like, why are we all on this exact same wavelength? It's not like, oh, Friday you see one person, Saturday you see one person. It's like, no, you see five on Saturday and you're not ready
Yeah.
for them.
Yes, and I always think about this memory lives rent free in my mind. So, in high school, our history teacher, he was so cute. Like he was the cute teacher, okay? Like everybody knew it. So anyways,
Mhm.
I think it was like sophomore, junior year. I'm out at Target with my mom and not looking cute, right? And we run into him and I'm like, "Oh my god." Like I was just like, "And why?" Like I'm like, "That's weird, Maddie." Like but like still, you're just like,
Right.
"Oh my gosh." Seeing a teacher out in public with your parent who's also like you're cute. And
Mhm.
I was trying to avoid him like the plague. And he's like, "Oh, hi." Then somehow we bumped in. He's like, "Oh, hi, Maddie." Like, and he was out with his wife and like he like wanted to stop. He like stopped to like chat with my mom and I. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
because I low key also think I was one of his favorite students because like I actually paid attention and like tried to care. But anyways,
Mhm.
that I just
Yeah.
always think of that memory because I'm just like, I don't want another encounter like that.
Right. Right. Yeah. If you're in a Target and you're like on one end of an aisle and you see someone else on the other end of the aisle, are you going down, and it's like someone who, like, not like a friend or like,
Uh-huh.
like acquaintance or anything like that, it's like a distant connection, are you
Okay.
like going down the aisle to say hello? Are you immediately like turning and like running away? Are you just gonna like proceed down the hall, and if they say hello, you say hello?
That one,
Like,
yep.
what's your course of action? That
I
one?
think I would proceed and like if they say I'm not gonna be the one to be like, "Hey," because I feel like enough
Mhm.
distant, like acquaintance type of thing where I feel
Mhm.
like that there's that unspoken rule. Honestly, like if you do want to talk to
Mhm.
me, like, but we just have that like we know each other, we may
Mhm.
smile at each other, but that's about it,
Yeah.
and we're just gonna go
That's
about our days.
Yep, that's what I was thinking. It's like a little, like, I like that one, like a little acknowledgement. It's like, "Hey, I recognize it's you, you recognize it's me, like, let's carry on with our day. We don't need to
Yep.
stop. None of us are gonna, like, start and say the hello. How's it been after all these years?" Like,
Yep.
we don't need to do, like, a full-on reunion in the store, and yeah, I'm all for a little acknowledgement, like, it's polite,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
not, like, putting us in any, like, uncomfortable, like, moment. So, I think
Yes.
that's a good yep, I
And
think
I
that's
also
good.
okay, wait, and then I have one and I laugh though too because so, like, I think of my brain as that sounds so weird, but, like, so I have, like, high school Madeline, right? But then, like, I started the
Mhm.
buzzing blonde here too, so it's funny because when I was living in Indy, like, I really would get there would be people who'd be like, "Oh my gosh, you're the buzzing blonde," and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, like, you know me?" Like, look where I'm like, "Oh," and it's just funny because one of my friends who I came home and visited, she, like I sent her a text or whatever, and she shared the text to her stories, and she's a hairstylist, and a few of the people who follow her, she's like, "Oh my gosh, you know the buzzing blonde." She was telling me the story, and I'm like, "You're just, like,
Mhm.
stroking my ego right now," where I'm like,
Right.
"Oh."
Right.
So, like, that and again, but I think I still would like, let's say I were to go out and somebody, like, were to, quote, unquote, "recognize me," which is so, like gives me the ick too, but, like, let's say that
Mhm.
happens, like, I feel like Avery would like, it just I'm gonna stop and talk to you because it's just, like but I also will feel bad because it's, like, if I don't know your name, I'm gonna be like, "What's your
Mhm.
name? What's your handle?" Because normally it's, like, it's,
Yeah.
like, I wanna recognize you, like, I don't wanna be the one who's, like, "Oh, you follow" anyways,
Mhm.
that's,
Yeah.
like, the conclusion of my story of my weekend thought.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good thing to consider, and I the other thing that reminds me is I saw it on your stories as well. Oh gosh, I'm, like, gonna mess it up, so you probably have to, like but it was something about it was, like, your home and wait, why am I, like, forgetting? It was, like, a text message with your parent about your parents. What was
Oh,
it?
oh,
Yeah.
my parent like, so I came home on Saturday, my parents weren't home, they were in Dayton,
Mhm.
Ohio, visiting my sister, and I knew that they weren't gonna be home because my mother informed me that they were going to be in
Right.
Dayton, Ohio, and I, like, joked, I was like, "Up, party starts at 9," because like, all
Mhm.
because I have so many friends here, like, no, and so I send this to
Right.
both my parents, and my dad's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I didn't know you were gonna be home," and I'm like, I'm so glad the communication in the Scott family is still accurate of,
Mhm.
like, not keeping my dad, because that's on me too, where I was like, "My bad, dad, I should have also let you know," but I was like, "I thought mom or Libby would have informed you."
Right, right. No, I definitely I feel like the same thing, like, in my family, like and then I feel like sometimes I, like, go out of my way to, like, call my dad or because he's more of, like, a
Uh-huh.
phone call guy anyway than a texter. Because if I text him, he's immediately calling me, and I'm like, "There's this unspoken rule that you break every time." So I'm like, "Let me just do it. I'll just call, like, I'll just rip the Band-Aid off." And I'll, like sometimes I'll call him and I'll tell him, like, "Oh, like, here's the plan," or "Here's this and
Mhm.
that." And he's always kinda like, "Okay. Like, why are you
My
telling me
dad does that
this? Why
too.
are you
My dad does
calling
it too.
me?" And
Mhm,
I'm like,
mhm.
if you're not told, you're like, "Wait, no one told me this." And I'm like, What do you want?"
I think that's
So,
a dad
I thought that
thing
was so funny.
because
Yeah.
my dad is the same way. So,
Yeah.
listeners, if your dad is also the same way, please let us know. Is that a dad thing?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so funny because I have like a weekend into week thought because we're recording
Okay.
this like later on in the week, but a big like so I spent the most of my like last 2 weeks traveling, which feel really like grateful for, but I I don't know how travel vloggers and travel like content creators do it full time. Like I realized on this trip, like, I am such a homebody, which is
Mm,
so funny because if you knew or didn't know, like, I'm a Sagittarius, and so I feel like I'm always conflicting, right? Like, I'm always feel the need to leave and travel
mm.
and go, but
Such
then I do, and I'm
Sagittarius.
like, "Oh, I have to come home. Like, I have to be home. I have to, like, be in my routine." So it's so funny. I'm so, like, conflicting in both ways, but, um, anyway, it was definitely a really awesome, I think, trip of a lifetime, and anyway, so I came back, and speaking of dads on this subject, my dad is out of town this weekend, and he's like, "I need help, like, packing." And I'm like, okay, like you're going for literally 2 days, like bring a carry-on. I'm like, I spent 2 weeks in Europe and I have a carry-on, which I'm like that annoying person who has to tell everyone
Yeah.
that I was able to accomplish a carry-on. And actually made it work. I will say it left no room in my suitcase for any like shopping, which is a bummer. And every time
Oh,
I go to Europe, I always have this thought and I tell Ryan, I'm like, it's probably more cost effective just with the cost of like clothes and whatnot over there. I'm like, I should go to Europe just for like a day, empty suitcase, shop, come back, and I guarantee it's probably more cost effective than like shopping here at home. Anyway, I
100%.
have that thought every time I go. And so anyway, helping my dad pack, he's like, "Well, you're the traveler of the family." And I'm like, "Okay, like I don't know if I'd consider myself the traveler. I guess in comparison to my family who does not really go anywhere, I guess you could say that I am." That I am. So I'm like, "Okay, here's what you can put in your carry-on." He's like, how many liquids can I bring?" I'm like, all of a sudden I've turned into like TSA. I'm like telling him like you can't do this, you can't do that. So anyway, so funny. Had to explain to him the whole like yeah, okay, you get to the airport, park here, go in here, do this, which I just think is so funny. Like, but I think that's a very like common thing, I think, for people who don't, they don't really like travel. But
Yeah.
anyway, other than that, I think the other thing that I really learned from kind of being away for a few weeks was that I think I personally could benefit with going with the flow more often. Like Ryan and I had like a very like deep conversation about this at dinner one night, and I'm like, we there was like some hiccups, like again, all good things, and with travel you always have delays or different things that happen. And so we had just those similar hiccups you would have on a trip. And I was just thinking, like, wow, I think I did really good. We had one flight that was delayed by like 7 hours. And at that time, we were like, because we were going from like one destination to another and then to our like final one. And it was
Mhm.
kind of like in that moment, you kind of make that decision like, do we skip this middle stop? Do we just go ahead to the
Mm.
next one? Do we want to stay longer where we're at? Or do we want to just wait for the delay to be over? And I honestly was very proud of myself. I was very just chill. I was like, let's just stay. Let's wait. Like, we can hang out in the
Yeah.
airport. Like there's a place to go. So we were in the airport in Athens, Greece, and as you would,
Ugh.
we got margaritas and tacos. I'm like, what else would you do in a Greek airport? So but it was one of those things that wasn't super ideal. But anyway, it just made me think of, and it's been like top of mind since, like I should be a little bit more go with the flow. I think it's hard when like, and I think most like entrepreneurs can relate to this, like you're planning for so many things, right? Like you're planning for, okay, I'm leaving my job, or I got fired or whatever, and I'm starting my own company, or I'm freelancing. And then you're planning like, okay, where's my next client coming from? You're planning like 3 months from now, 6 months from now. So you're always like trying to control things. And so anyway,
Mhm.
one thing that's been on top of mind is how do I control or try to control less, because you really can't control a ton of things. And I think when you're traveling, it really shows like, no, you cannot control anything. So just something that I was like thinking about this weekend.
I love that.
And that's a random thought.
I love our random thoughts. Okay, well, on that note, let's get into our weekly reports. Do you want to start?
Yeah. Yeah. I can start. So I'm happy to report I actually think I read 4 books while I was gone.
Ooh,
I
okay.
will say it is very funny. I read 4 books by Abby Jimenez, which I think is hilarious that I didn't really branch out into any other author, but it's okay. But I wanted to put the most recent one on my weekly report for reading, which was Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I thought the story was so good. I love how she writes. She's a great author to get you out of a reading rut, which I just personally feel like I've been in for a while. For eating, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with focaccia bread just coming off of my trip, but Trader Joe's has a focaccia mix that is delicious. So it's so good. If you haven't tried it, it's It's really easy to make too if you're like, "Oh, a mix, that scares me," but I there's nothing better than, like, freshly baked bread or
Mm.
goods, and I'm a big fan of semi-homemade, so semi-homemade is, like, my my way to go. For playing, I'm really loving, by Nick Viall, the Viall Files podcast. I think he's from Bachelor Nation, if you're unfamiliar with who Nick Viall is, but I think he gets such amazing guests on his show, and I think I don't know, the questions he asks are so good. I feel like it's very unfiltered, very, very raw. So it's a really good podcast. I think I really started listening back to it right after we all started binging like Mormon
What?
Wives, something
Mhm.
lives. Yeah, yeah, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives on Hulu. And he had Taylor Frankie Paul on, which was also if you watch that season and you're like, I need more information or more mom talk, like that's a great one to start with. So playing that, obsessing over Nobody Wants This. I think that was in my playing, like, right before I went on my trip, and so I finished it on the trip, and it was one of those things. Every time I watch a show like that, and Ryan's always like, "I'm not gonna watch it, I'm not gonna watch it." He's, like, hooked. They're, like, saying things, making jokes, and Ryan's, like, laughing, and I'm like, "Wait, I thought you weren't watching this." But I'm obsessed with it. I hope it comes back for another season, for many, many seasons. I've loved, like, all of the press tour that, like, Kristen Bell and Adam Brody have done for it, and I really love kind of listening to little, like, clips on TikTok. It's been on my For You page of the real sisters of, like, who, like,
Mhm.
it's kinda based off of, and so maybe next week that'll be on my playing. I'll actually listen to a full podcast of theirs, but, I really, really am obsessing over that. Recommending that you think about holiday marketing now. I know right now, as we're recording this, we're getting really close to the end of October. You're probably seeing a lot of content that says you're too late, you should have already done all of these things. Like, you're not too late. If you're thinking
Mhm.
about it right now in this moment, you're probably ahead of 60% of marketers, so you're doing just fine. Like, we're doing the best we can with the time
Mhm.
we have, but I think it's a really good idea to start now because it's going to take a lot of work, and we'll get through it together. And then treating myself on on my flight home. My I had an 8-hour flight, and I upgraded on United to Polaris Business. And at first I was like, I don't know. It was a couple $100. I'm not gonna fully disclose the amount because I feel like it went a little bit over than I wanted to spend. But, at the end of the day, I feel like after wrapping up such a good trip, and I've never done the Polaris Business where you can, like, lay flat and get the whole, like, luxury, like, service. Honestly, 10 out of 10, recommend. And so, it was
Did
just
you
really
get
nice
content of
to
that? Please tell me you did.
I did. Yes, I
Yes.
did.
Okay.
I did.
I can't wait
I
to
did.
see that. I can't wait to see that.
I have so much content from my trip that I honestly, guys, I've been home for several days, and I haven't even had a chance to look at it. I haven't even, like, posted a photo dump, like, on my personal yet of, like, "Hey, guys, here's," because I think, like, for me, I was like, "Oh, do I wanna post in the moment?" Which old
Mm.
me, like, used to do that, like, way back when. Like, pre-pandemic, I would do that. But now I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna do a photo dump," but I need to do it soon. But I definitely got content of being in Polaris Business, which was nice because the way my flight worked with, like, coming back, with the time change, I got to, like, really enjoy it. It wasn't like an overnight, which that would have also been just as nice to have that as well. But yeah, it was so nice. There was, like, all these, like, little perks and things that I all knew because one of my favorite, like, types of videos to watch on YouTube is people who fly first class on, like, all the airlines. So I feel like I knew what to expect. Um, but yeah, it was really nice to be able to do that. So that was my weekly report. And yeah. All right,
Love
Maddie, I
that.
want to hear what's on your report.
Okay, so I'm glad that we both are out of our reading rut because same. So I'm reading All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers, and she's actually from Indiana. I'm not a
Ooh.
crime junkie. She's one of the hosts, I think, of True Crime Junkie. So for if you guys are
Oh,
listening and are true
cool.
crime junkies, like represent Indy. I always love, Would I think that's with anybody with their home roots where you're like, "Yeah."
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
then I'm eating bagels. Oh my gosh, so many bagels. My parents got like, my parent being home, I was telling Jessica this yesterday, like, they get all my favorite things, which I love, but I'm like, I have 0 willpower, so
Mhm.
I'm eating everything, the Halloween candy,
Oh,
everything.
yes.
So
Yeah.
my stomach's just
Yep.
like, "Who are" yeah, so anyways, bagels.
Yeah.
Then playing, I listened to Over the Influence by Joanna, AKA the original JoJo I'm gonna pronounce her last name wrong. Levisk? Levisk, I think that's how I say it. Um, you
Mhm.
guys,
Yeah, I'm not
hopefully you
sure.
know.
You might be right.
But so good. Highly recommend listening to it. One of my friends here, she said she was reading it, and I told her how I finished it, and she's like, "I think I need to switch to maybe listening to it," which highly recommend because she obviously
Yeah.
narrates it. And then I'm obsessing over, and I actually posted it in our Instagram stories earlier this week, if you saw, but this papery planner, and which leads me to I'm recommending finding a 2025 planner. Nobody in our stories had any suggestions. So, actually one person did, and it was a Australian brand, so I will share that one. Somebody did. Um, but I'm in the market. I'm in the market for that good paper planner for 2025. And then I'm treating
Yeah.
myself to a facial today to get it because
Ooh,
it is dry. Like,
nice.
also, it is cold. It is cold here, and I'm just like, the moisture's
Yeah.
gone. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Fall is here.
yes, yes, it
But,
is.
yeah, I recently used, like, last year, a planner. I wanna say it's called My PA Planner, I wanna say is the
Okay,
brand, and I really liked that I'm considering maybe getting another one for 2025. Um,
okay.
I feel like I have it somewhere, but I just feel like my life is, like, intransient right now, so I don't know, like, where any of my things are, which is kind of scary. Um, but yeah, I think now is, like, a really good time to find a planner or just start, like, researching and, like, vetting the different ones because they
Right.
all have so many different things that I don't know, sometimes you have to see, like, does it have all of the things that you're looking for? Like, some of them are more, like, business oriented or more, like, career, like or just, like,
Yep.
goal or fitness oriented, so there's a lot of things that could be in a planner, and the way that the I feel like the day versus the week versus, like, the month planning, I feel like
Mhm.
to me that's my biggest critique of any planner,
Yes,
so
and, like, with my ADHD too, where it's just like I think I'm too in the market of, like, I do like seeing the overview and then seeing the weekly and
yeah.
yeah, that's where I'm just figuring that out. So, if any listeners too, like, again, if you guys have recommendations, maybe you even have your own business, like, that would be cool if we do have some listeners out there who like, you guys have
Yeah.
created a planner, shoot them our way, like,
Yeah,
because when I say
absolutely.
I will most likely buy a few because because
Yes,
I
yes.
am that
Yeah, do
person.
you ever yeah, can you ever buy
S
just one? Like, you
No.
have to try them out. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
We,
Oh,
Paige and Hannah of Ghibli Squad say, like, we have to support women in the arts, and so if you
yes.
have your own planner company, let us know, we'll buy
Please,
immediately.
please, yes. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm excited for this water cooler today. I say that every week, but this one very much so ties into the topic of today, so gather around, listen up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I signed on this 475 franchise that is opening in a month. The thing is, since it's a franchise, they're required to stay on brand and use a lot of these corporate Canva templates. And since they're not open yet, I can't even use unique photos to manipulate some of these. I'm doing my best with what I have. They need 200 members signed up before they can even open. So the entire first month is going to be just pushing founding memberships. But I have no idea how to make this look less generic, and I feel like some of the templates are kind of ugly. Does anybody have any experience with something like this? Any tips to make it look better? They're a high paying client, so I want to do good by them. And as far as reels and stories, we can kind of do whatever. But I am just so stumped on how to plan this first month's worth of posts slash carousels. Also, important to note, the studio isn't even set up yet, so it's not like we can set up a fake photo shoot either, so we have to use these photos from the company. Obviously, I can only do so much. I just can't tell if this is horrible looking or if it's okay based on what I have to work with.
Ooh,
This is
such
good.
an
See, I told you guys this would be a
yeah.
good one.
Yeah, no, this is a good one. And also, thank you because this is so detailed. And I
Mhm.
feel like Maddie and I always need like the more details, the better. So we can, one, kind of really understand and try to tailor like that advice. And I think for this, there's multiple layers that I think is very
Mhm.
fascinating to me. So, one, I think it's very interesting working with a franchise client because I want to say probably like 100% of the time. I mean, they said there was a little wiggle room with stories and reels. So maybe 90% of the time, you have to be very, very, very on brand. But every franchise is different and they all have different like marketing handbooks and different things that they give. So, really just kind of getting that from your client, which they have because they'll get all of those materials, as they're like opening up the franchise. But when I think about this, I think a big piece of this first month, if you will, because a few things stood out. It's like, okay, you can't go in and do content shoots because they're not open. I mean, I think knowing what those timelines are from, you know, the client reaching out to you, starting the project, location opening, and then actual like public opening, right? Like for these members to kind of come in. I think those timelines are really, really important and it might kind of stretch you might have to be super flexible with this client for that first month. I think a lot of times, I think this goes into the onboarding, right? Like this onboarding time is going to be very interesting from, milestone to milestone. I think I think what I would suggest, just like how I would approach it, is that first month, I would almost be super strategic with the Instagram grid that I would probably suggest a 9 grid to launch us. Choose 9 or create maybe sometimes I don't love these, but for this, I don't hate it because you're super limited. What do you call it where you
I
take
know.
like a really big
Yes,
image
and
and you
you
cut
you
it
break it
into
up.
9?
I
Yeah,
forget
I
what
mean,
it's
you could also
called.
do that. Yeah, I hope you guys are listening know what we're thinking about. But think about you're looking at a 9 grid. It's one photo, but it's cut into 9 squares. So hopefully you guys can vision what that looks like. Oh, it's not a puzzle because that's a different kind of grid. But I think you like it's just cut into multiple pieces, and you don't have to do 9. You could do 6. You could do 3. But something that really shows that there's this timeline from I guess date A, like the first date to opening date of when this special is. I'm sure just because I know you said they need to get 200 members to signed up before they can even open. So I'm sure that they're probably running a promotion. It might be like X off your year membership or X off your monthly membership or whatever that looks like. Put that into a cool template or templates that can fit on the 9 grid and focus more on 2 other things. Well, you could do 3. Focus more on stories. You could also focus on reels because you don't have to share them on the feed. You could definitely keep them on the reels tab. That's totally okay. I think for this first month, it's just a unique strategy. The bio could be set up where it could take people to the link in bio or to the highlights where it's like, hey, we're opening up on X date and we're trying to get our 200th member to be able to open. You could do some really fun copy around that. And then the third thing I would really focus on is community management, follow local
Mhm.
businesses, follow, I don't know what kind of membership it is, but there's probably something that's really specific that, you could connect with other businesses, right? Like, I don't know, connect with local coffee shops. Say like, "Hey, could we run a story on your stories like for a couple times? We're new, we're trying to get 200 members and we're local to the community. When we're open, we'll reciprocate and we'll publish people going in and grabbing coffee afterwards at your shop." So, thinking about it in that sense of, how can I make use with what I have? And sometimes we've talked about this before on the podcast, but sometimes I really think that social media management is so much more than let's post pretty graphics and cool captions on a feed. And again, I think that really plays into your pricing. I think it should 100% reflect that. But I think that's what makes you like really stand out. So I hope that's helpful. Maddie, do you have anything else to add, like for this unique like,
The only
situation, especially because 'cause they're not open, yeah.
the only thing I would say is maybe really play into the founding members, and because yes, local, but with gym memberships, like the F45, people who just moved to this town or wherever are looking for that sense of community,
Ooh,
where to, like, meet people, and
yeah,
if you can sell it in a way where I like going and seeing the people, where it's like, I like recognizing people at the works where I work out. Granted, have I
yeah,
said hi or, like, actually made friends with any of these people? Like, I'm not there yet because it is a gym of, like, younger girls, and just, like, that's a me thing, I know that. But
mhm,
I feel, let's say when it first opened up, I feel like those are the girls I see in there, like, really bonding with each other. Um, so I would just say, like, really
yeah,
tying into what you were saying is just the local, and kind of selling it in a way where you're a part of something like that, so, like, you to kinda sell on that
yeah,
point of feeling included and community, which, no duh, that's
yeah,
what we were saying. But and
yeah,
then with the stories and the reels, like, go hard on the stories. Start to, like, make it engaging where, you know, maybe there's a few coffee shops where it's like, "Where are you going?" Like, once we open, where are you gonna go most likely after? Because maybe it is around a
mhm,
few places, and you could always do, like, matcha or coffee or a smoothie shop, um, but
yeah,
really,
yeah,
and the people, and also like, let's say you already have those founding members, really nurturing their, again, the community management, really hyping them up on social media, encouraging them once you guys open, because we'll get into this in the topic more too, but your reels and your stories is going to be where you really hit hard on the whole local versus, like, what the
mhm,
franchise is giving you content-wise, like, that is where you're gonna be able
yeah,
to let your creativity, like, flow, in my opinion. So,
yeah,
yeah, that's the only thing I would add, is just, like, really lay on those founding members.
yeah, yeah. Ooh, I love that advice. I think that's good, and I liked your idea on new people coming into the community because sometimes, like, I know it's not the most difficult thing to kind of, like, target locally, but
Mhm.
sometimes it's like it's kind of like you said, like, kind of using what actually at 45 is as a real metaphor. You go to a workout class, it's like, "Ooh, when do I say hello to the people
Mhm.
next to me or the people around me? Is it before? Is it during? Is it after?" Like, that's the same thing when you think about, like, here's a new franchise opening up in the area. But you could also think about all the other new people who are moving to town, like connecting with realtors, like in the area
Ooh,
who
mhm.
are selling houses or getting people into apartments in the area. I think could be really a fun way. Like they have audiences and they need content. Guys, they need content that is not here's a listing, it's
Yep.
sold. Like, like we have to switch it up a little bit. So, ooh, I think that's a really good idea. But yeah, we'll go into more specifics around feed stories, reels, like once we dive into the topic and share all of our thoughts around franchise marketing in
Yes.
just a minute. But should we cover what's on our feed?
Yes. Eee. I'm excited.
Okay. So, on my feed, the Victoria's Secret fashion show is back after what, 6 years? 5, 6 years?
So many
I think it
years.
was very, very interesting. I've read so many, opinion pieces, articles around, the fashion show being back. I I'll just start with, I don't know if I have a strong opinion, like, one way or another. Like,
Oh, okay.
I see both sides. I don't know, maybe it's because I don't know. I understand the controversy around it coming
Mhm.
back, and then I understand the controversy around how it's coming back, and it's opening its doors a little bit from what I've seen, like, so I from my understanding, I know there's a lot, like, everyone who kind of walked on the show, I know that there was some veterans, to the industry,
Mhm.
like models,
Mhm.
whatnot. Obviously, like really big moments in that. Um, I know they made history. I know there was a transgender model who walked as well, which I think is very big. I think like the age
I was gonna
and
say that.
different
Mhm.
yeah, age is very big. I think there was more diversity as well with correct me if I'm wrong the best way to say it, but with different like size models. I
Mhm.
mean,
Mhm.
granted, is any fashion show, like my opinion, is any fashion show perfect in nailing every single um avatar that they need to be 100% inclusive? I think if we watch fashion shows from Paris Fashion Week, if we watch it from New York Fashion Week, like there's always brands that are innovating and being inclusive, but there's always room, I think, for
Mhm.
improvement. So that's where I'm saying, like, I feel like I know there was a lot of kind of hate around what was done there. It was like, oh, it could be more, more, more. Um, but anyway, other than that, I think it was I think the fact that it's back, and honestly, I had no idea. I maybe just because I was not, like, on social media for a while before it happened, because I pretty much unplugged, on my trip. So I was like, "Oh, it's back, it's here." Like, I'm watching, like, all the, like, footage and whatnot.
Uh-huh.
But I think for me, like, I don't know if it's just for me growing up, it's such a like, it's a memory, like, I just like,
Mhm.
there's so many iconic moments of a
So
VS fashion show, like, growing up that granted, whether we wanted them to be iconic for a good reason or not good reason,
Mhm.
like, make your own opinions there, but there's just so many moments that it popped up, and so I like to see it back. I mean, do I think anything could have room for improvement? Absolutely. I do feel like, and maybe because it's back and it hasn't been around for a while, and times are different than 6 years ago, I would have liked to see something different, like, with the show. I don't even know what again, I'm like a client who can't give you, like, great edits. I'm like, "Just do it different," you know what I mean? Like, I can't say, like, specifically what to do. If you guys have clients like that, I hope you're laughing at that, but I don't know. But anyway, I like to see it. I thought it was great. I'd love to see it for years to come, and I don't know, I feel like it could really kind of come back and be a big thing for Victoria's Secret. I will say though, being in Europe for a while, Victoria's Secret's influence is huge over there. I'm pretty sure every airport I was in had Victoria's Secret, and even then, all the duty-free stores, because we were on, like, airports and in cruise ships and cruise ports, like, every duty-free store had, like, a Victoria's Secret beauty, like, cap, like, next to, like, Dior
Mhm.
and Gucci, and
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, Dior, Gucci, Victoria's Secret Beauty, got it. Like, it just seemed interesting because I feel like
Uh-huh.
here, we're like Victoria's Secret's at our local, like, rundown mall, which we
Yeah.
all used to go to like 15 years ago. So it's very, very interesting. But so that's on my feed, and really enjoyed seeing that. I feel like I still need to consume more content around it. But Maddie, what were your thoughts about the fashion
Okay,
show
okay.
being back?
So I was underwhelmed. I was underwhelmed by it, but it gave
That's a
me
good word. Yeah.
It gave me I think that the marketing leading up to the show was chef's kiss. Chef's kiss, like, the
Mm,
Instagram ads I saw. So, like, I was getting really excited. I think everybody that kinda also led to maybe, like, the letdown because we're, like, the OGs, Tyra and, Candace, and just they're icons. Heidi walked, right? I didn't actually
I
watch it,
think
like, I've been, like,
yeah,
seeing clips, but, that leads me to, I think the media, like the Instagram and even the TikToks, I think they knew that was how maybe millennials and that's how we were going to watch it, so that's why I was so underwhelmed by their social team, if I'm being honest. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. But I'm
yeah,
just like, I wanted more from you, but it was also giving me we're scared of cancel culture right now, and I think they were like, everybody on the market team was scared, so they were playing it safe, and I respect that, but it's the Victoria's Secret fashion show. You guys already did the worst you could do, essentially, where it's
right,
like, it's gonna
right,
go up from here. You've acknowledged, and, like, I think they've acknowledged, like, you've acknowledged the past and how it was messed up, and, like, this is the new
yeah,
Victoria's Secret, and just, like, even the outfits, like, where I'm just like, oh, I think I saw one girl, she was just saying, like, when the Victoria's Secret fashion show would come out, it was always during the holidays, and, like, the next week, the catalog would most likely be in your mailbox, and you're like, we're girls, we're circling, like, "Ooh, I want this," and stuff, and there was always the iconic $1,000, $1,000,000 bra that you're like, "Oh my
yeah,
gosh, could you imagine that?" And it's like, I was not seeing anything, but here's the thing, I do think Victoria's Secret has updated, up their game when it comes to the bras and underwear. Like, I truly like, I want to buy the things, so and maybe that's brand loyalty in a weird way too, because I know Victoria's
yeah,
Secret isn't, and I think Victoria's Secret knows that too. Like, guess what? You guys used to be, I don't wanna say
yeah,
the monopoly of it, but, like, you guys were the
yeah,
lingerie business, but now with when the body positive movement was coming, like, you guys were slowly, like, not hopping on to what was going on, that yeah, you kinda got pushed out, but I still think
yeah,
their designers are good. Um,
yeah,
so overall, I loved it too, and I just it's fun to see the girls coming to, like, so maybe that's the moment that have enjoyed where it's like we are all sharing our thoughts on it, whether it's good or bad. Like, yeah, we all have opinions, but at least we're talking about it. And maybe that was their angle where it's like at least people are talking about it still. And I would say, like, from the
yeah,
videos that I've seen, nobody, again, the cancel culture, the few that I have seen was, I think Tyra was the most controversial because of just like things from like, things of her past coming out, and it's just like, but
yeah,
I'm proud of, like, again, where it's like still, I not enough to cancel a person in my opinion, where I'm glad she walked, but I do, like, some people I would have loved to see her in something else because to me she's a mom. Like, why
yeah,
weren't you I wanted to see your mom body, like bra and undies, but it's like I felt they covered her up, and I'm like, but you have a beautiful body, like,
yeah,
let's see it. And then Ashley
yeah,
Graham, so the plus size model,
yeah.
love them all, and just overall, I would say I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10 stars.
Ooh,
So,
yeah,
like, halfway, I hope it stays, but I hope they social
yeah,
listen. I hope they're listening to what people
yes,
are saying to kind of with the strategy moving forward, because, again, the blowups, people were upset, like, "Where are the lushes?" And I'm like,
mhm,
"Okay, now we're getting really
mhm,
nitty-gritty here," but I agree because,
right,
like, but let's be honest, that's what we're used to, and clearly millennials, like, we're reaching for the nostalgia with Limited 2 coming out, like, we nostalgia marketing is
yeah,
how you will truly sell, you can sell anything to millennial, in my opinion. So, if you're
yeah,
struggling to market to millennials, there you go. And that's
yeah,
hashtag what managed.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, no, I agree. I think that's such a good point, and I think I'm glad you brought it back to, like, because it is, like, nostalgia marketing, like, Victoria's Secret, like, whether you shop there, wow, I mean, yeah, that was I mean, I feel like ever since I was, like, middle school and then
Yeah.
high school for sure, like, to me, that was such a big, like, piece of, like of my life, like, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
even Victoria's Secret pink was such a
Pink.
huge part. Yeah. Huge,
That
huge
was
part.
like that's like our
Eh
original loungewear.
Yes, yes, like, that wa there was no Lululemon, there was no Aloe Yoga, like, there was no Set Active, like, no, it was pink, fold over cotton leggings with crazy bedazzled prints, and you loved
Mhm.
it, and it was great, and, like, yeah, that was it, and yeah, I think that's such a good I think it's such a good thing for, like, brands who sell, like, similar products, like, there's so I feel like now there's so much has changed, right? Like you think about like Skims, which I love
Mm,
Skims. I know we've talked about Skims before. Like I'm a huge fan of the products. I love the brand that's being built, and I love how it's inclusive, and they do so like it's not only inclusive for like every person to wear and to be able to enjoy, but it's also inclusive in how they market. And I think that sometimes it's like okay, you can say things, but it's when you do things and, like, make
mm,
that action, I think that's the biggest thing, and I think that's where, like, Victoria's Secret has always been a little, like, tone deaf, that they just don't it's not that they back away, and then they come back, and then they back
mhm,
away, and they come back, and it's like, like, retail is obviously dying, so if you're a company that holds on to like the past, then you're going to stay in the past is I guess is what I'm thinking about. But yeah, I really I think nostalgia marketing, especially as we get into holiday season. I don't know if it's because
mm.
it's been like 60 degrees like here in Florida the past 2 days, but I'm like, yes, I'm here. It's fall. We're getting into the seasons. It's so nice. But I think nostalgia marketing is such a easy thing. Like I said earlier at the top of the episode, think about your holiday marketing now. Like think
Mhm,
about how you can weave in nostalgia marketing. It can be that's the beauty of it is like it's so simple. It can be
mhm,
so simple and so basic, but it can really leave such a good like um impression on your audience. And then that is your holiday campaign. It doesn't have to be like crazy BOGO flash sales and we're cutting prices and slashing like it doesn't have to be that at all. It can be like so simple and so fun. But anyway,
Wait, and I have one more thing
Maddie
to say to
oh,
the
okay. Yeah.
nostalgia because and I feel like it can be so easy because that feeling is so easy to especially for 90s babies. Again, I'm sorry to like if we have boomers too, like and the same with Gen Z because like the holidays in general, like
Yeah.
but like those feelings, like you can paint it with your words and with pictures, like that content, like should just feel so fun to make where find pictures of yourself when you were kids. Now I need to make a note that we need to find pictures of you and I, like, when we're, like, children from the holidays to, like,
Mhm.
post to the stories. But, it's just tapping into too, like, what was your favorite gift when you were a child? Not to make it materialistic and stuff, but, like, we have those memories and, like,
Yeah.
traditions, like, your favorite family traditions and just all that stuff. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So on my feed, so kind of it's not really like I feel like this week's theme of our honor feed is like yay women, honestly. So what
Yeah,
was on
it is.
my
I'm here for
what
it.
yes, so what was on my feed is Molly Baz, I hope I said her name right, and formula maker Bobby. They brought this I wish I had a British accent. Had a stunning billboard ad in Times Square with breastfeeding, and the whole campaign is about breastfeeding plus formula. So, I'm not saying the term correctly, but, like, there is where it's, like, these working moms where it's, like, while they want to breastfeed, sometimes that's, like, you're so busy that you can't, and so, like and especially you need to have the dad help out, so it's, like, you as much as you wanna be your baby to be fully breastfed, like, busy moms, like, that market has been and I know that Jessica and I aren't moms yet, but, like, I don't know, to me, this I'm not a mom yet, but this campaign even resonated with me because I feel like this is, like, my future where it's just, like, to not feel guilty,
Mhm.
and because I feel like with
Yeah.
breastfeeding, right, like, and formula, like, there's, like, I hate that that narrative is still there, and so, like, this ad, I'm just like, I applaud it so much, and of course, like, of course, the chads, dads, whatever, like, they upset some people, it upset some people, and I'm like, "Good. Good, because we need
Yeah.
to talk about it." And so I'll be sure to put it in the newsletter, but Bobby's the brand, and I'm not a mom yet, so it's funny to me because it's, like, starting to expose me to these brands that, like, I think subconsciously now I'm gonna start to, like, when I am like, when we're at that next chapter, it's like these brands I'm already exposed to them, I'm gonna be like, "Oh, like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna try this out because I also believe it's, like, a very clean formula as well. And so, like,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
very much speaking to our generations too, because like, you don't wanna be and, like, the point is, like, breast milk is obviously the best milk you could give your baby, but here's the second best. Like, we get that you're busy, and that's not always the case, like, but we're a good second option if and when you need.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
loved it, like,
Yeah.
seriously, the ads I just thought were so stunning and
Yeah. I agree.
funny.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. I thought it was so good. Sometimes um I like when brands like push buttons in the best way
Mhm,
possible. Like and I know it's easier said than done, right? Like there have been brands who try to like make these big moves and make these big statements and it's like, "Whoa, what are you doing here? Like what
mhm.
what are you doing?" But I think when you, like, really think about it at its core, like you said, it needs to be done, like, these are all conversations that need to be had, and I'm here for it. So, I know it's not like you said, we're not specifically this, like, target audience yet,
Mhm.
but eventually we will be, and, like, knowing these brands and, like, what they stand for, is really important, especially because especially in this industry, right, of, that target, women who are expecting, and then they target, um, like moms of like newborn babies and whatnot. Like there are some brands that again they're not putting out the best products, they don't have the best ingredients, like
Mhm.
because every company is so different. So I think it's interesting, like you said, as we like get into that next chapter, I feel like it's a whole other thing to kind of like learn. Like
Yeah.
and I know, which I think is very funny because I know you're home in Indy for like baby showers, like, and I feel like right now literally my entire Amazon and Target, like, purchase history right now is all baby things because everyone I know is expecting at this very moment, and it's,
Uh-huh.
like, it's so funny because now I'm, like, maybe, like, in the future, like, when I get into that chapter, I just have to go into, like, reorder from history, like, I'm just reorder, like, all the things I'm buying for gifts, I'm like, "Okay, just, like, add to my own cart." But it is so funny, like, but it's such a industry that is so new to me, and I know it like, I guess other than in this season I am right now with all my, like, friends and cousins and family friends who are expecting, other than that, there's 9 years, almost 10 years between myself and my sister who's younger, and so when I was younger, I went through kind of the whole motions of, "Okay, I'm getting a baby sister," and obviously,
Mm.
like, I was older and like I always felt because I was a only child for almost 10 years, so I feel like I was very independent. And so I feel like learned so much. But even now, I mean 10 years later, this or 10 years after that, like the industry is so different. Like it's not what it was.
Right.
But it's definitely interesting. So, but I thought it was a great campaign and I agree. I think we put very feminine forward things on our feed, which is fun because
Eh,
sometimes I feel like our feeds are like the exact same. Sometimes they're not similar at all. And then sometimes I
Mhm.
know our For You pages are just wild. So
Yep.
I thought it was really fitting. Um, should we dive into our topic of today and talk all things franchise marketing?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I
Okay,
feel like
let's do it.
yeah, I feel like do we start with should we define franchise
Yeah,
marketing?
let's do it.
Um,
Yeah, let's do it.
okay, so again, I like to, like, always, like, do a quick Google and, like, what's, like, an actual? Because I could sit here and tell you, like, franchise market like, "Oh, you have your Chick-fil-A," but anyways, um,
Mhm,
it refers to the strategies and tactics used to promote both the overall franchise brand and its individual franchises. This type of marketing typically involves a mix of centralized efforts by the franchisor to build brand awareness and support the franchise network, as well as localized efforts by individual franchises to attract customers to their specific locations. It encompasses advertising, social media, SEO, public relations, and promotional campaigns, ensuring that all franchise locations maintain brand consistency while addressing local market needs. So
mm,
I feel like that really does encompass it, where you have the franchises and, like, I feel like for this topic, we could use a few examples. I wanna throw out Chick-fil-A because I think for the longest time, it wasn't until, like, 2021 that I realized Chick-fil-A was a franchise, which I don't know why I didn't think that, because very similar to McDonald's, like, obviously McDonald's is a franchise as well, but,
yeah,
my old VA, her brother owns some Chick-fil-A's, and so, like, that was kinda cool for
mhm,
me to, like, see it from her,
yeah,
like, because I just started following his Chick-fil-A to just to kinda see what was up, um,
yeah.
but I'm gonna throw out Chick-fil-A. What other like, maybe throw out 2 other franchises?
Yeah, so I'll and not to, like, fill up the 2 by any means, but
No,
I
please
think
do.
for, so when I was in high school and in college, like, in the start of school, I worked for 2 franchises, and the first one that is, like, just front
Mhm.
desk reception slash customer service slash sales slash, like, it's a it's a little bit of everything, but it was an hourly role, but it was also commission based because, franchises sometimes run off of a membership model similar to our water cooler. And so I first started working for a Hand and Stone, which is
Oh.
massage. Yeah,
Yeah.
massage and facials. And I worked there for a while, and it was a very peaceful place to work, as you would think a spa would
Yeah,
be.
I
So,
I would hope.
um yeah, and so I worked for one locally here, and the owner of that location owned, I think, 3 or 4 others in the Tampa Bay area, and I think actually since then he's opened, like, 3 or 4 more, and he's also the owner of a couple of Plato's Closets, which are franchises as well, if you're
Mhm.
familiar with Plato's Closet, like a buy and sell consignment store. Um, so that is one, and that I think when I worked for Hand and Stone corporate marketing would always come in and share, like, best practices for advertising, marketing, and they really ran the marketing playbook, like, for the company.
That's cool. That I love that. I the fact that I didn't know that you worked for Hand and Stone and well, I'm gonna assume Plato's Closet was the second one, but this makes me now just wanna go
And
book a massage, like, so bad.
yeah, same, same. And so I actually didn't work for Plato's Closet.
Okay.
After I worked at Hand and Stone, I started working at European Wax Center. If you're familiar with mm, European Wax Center, which is waxing, and very similar model, like membership model. So after I worked at Hand and Stone, I started working at European Wax Center, and that was a company that I think that was right around the time that I was switching from. Yeah, I don't know if I ever said this on the podcast, but when I first went to college, well, I went undecided, and then I went business, and then I thought I was gonna go
Mm.
accounting.
I
I
did
don't know
not know
why,
this.
because I'm like,
No.
okay, which I don't know if I ever told you this, because obviously, like, accounting, but I don't know why I ever thought that I would do that, which is so funny. I think at the time, like, Ryan was a finance major, which I know, like, not exactly the same thing, but
Right.
I think I was kind of, like, delusional with, like, I'm just gonna copy whatever Ryan's doing at school. But then but then I took a, like, an intro to advertising class, and I was like, "No, I'm
Mm,
switching. Like,
yeah.
what am I doing?" I like, why would I even think that I wouldn't do something, like, creative or in marketing?
Mhm.
Um so then I switched my major, and I started that was the same time I was working at European Wax Center, and I just remember again, they had very similar to Hand and Stone where the corporate would come in and really guide the marketing. And I want to say, I hope I'm not forgetting that or remembering this wrong, but I want to say European Wax Center is a Miami-based company. Like that's where they started.
Okay.
So I think I know now their marketing has really changed, but when I worked like several years ago for them, it was very like Miami influenced. And you know, like you think of like waxing and you think of vacation and beach and bikinis and like just feeling confident in your skin. I feel like I don't know if very similar to the whole like Victoria's Secret fashion show, like no no longer existing kind of thing. If it was okay, it wasn't super body positive, you know, messaging. It was putting out a different image. Again, this was years and years ago. But I remember I really loved that's where I really started loving like branding and marketing
Mm,
and everything from actually from working at European Wax Center and just kind of seeing firsthand every piece of the branding was in everything. And even more incredible because it's a franchise. So essentially it's owned by, you know, someone who's the franchisee. They typically own multiple companies and it's owned by like a parent company who's, you know, kind of acting with all of the licensing and everything to be able to use the brand and the playbook of, you know, how to run your wax center or whatever. And it was just very it was a place where I learned a lot. And actually when I after that well, I had another job in between them, but then at that point, that's when I started applying for jobs for, like, different marketing agencies because 'cause I'm like, "Hey, I need, like, real world experience." I didn't have a portfolio, and this was gosh, I don't even remember what year this was in, and I didn't even, like, think, like, "Let me create, like, my own portfolio," and it wasn't and I don't know why, but I never really wanted to use, like, school projects as a portfolio.
mm,
I don't know, I just always felt like, you know, because 'cause you're so maybe it just for my experience in my program, I just felt like it was so limited in, like, what I did. It didn't show, like, my full scope. So, actually,
mhm.
when I went into interview for this position, I didn't have a portfolio or anything, and I didn't have any marketing experience at that point. Um, and so I remember just talking to them. I, like, pulled up European Wax Center's, like, website on a computer, and then I pulled up their, like, Instagram and Facebook, and I think Twitter was even what they had, and I just remember I think I talked to them for, like, 30 minutes full of, like, here's how I would market European Wax Center completely differently, and they were just like, "Whoa, that was
Mhm.
incredible." Like, you know what I mean? Like, because that was something that I felt like was so anyway, I always when I think about, like, my getting started, like, in marketing, I really, like, attribute it back to European Wax Center, even though I only worked the front desk. I never did anything marketing related, but I was like, "Here's what I would do completely different." Um, and so I think a big piece of why I really like franchise marketing is and I know we'll talk about it because I think it is also, um, like, the pros and the cons and the challenges, like, you get the playbook from from
Mhm.
corporate, right? And I think that's a really beautiful thing to have that, like, framework, but it's super local. And so I really love that it's local just to reach and, like, build the community. And I think that's one thing that a lot of small businesses have the upper hand about. But for some reason, I would maybe put this as a con or a challenge with franchise marketing. I feel like franchise locations think they can't be super localized because they think they have to fit in that mold of
Mhm.
the brand, of the corporate, of HQ, when it's really it's no, that's to guide you, to, like, set you up for success locally. So that's kind of I think that's, like, a big challenge that I think a lot of franchisees run into, like, they're just, like And ma last thing I'll add to that as well is maybe it be lack of resources or just lack of, like, marketing knowledge of what to do, but I think they're so stuck with, "Okay, I can't customize this. I can't tailor it," when in reality, like, you can and you should,
Mhm.
whether they don't know how to customize it or they don't have a person in that role, or they think that, like, they have to follow that framework specifically from the company. But on the other hand, I think there's a lot of franchises who do a really good job um, of marketing. I'll try to think of something as we're before we close out the episode, if I can give a specific example. Um, but Maddie, what do you think are like pros and cons?
I would definitely say with the pros, you're gonna get your brand recognition. So, like, that's like, again, especially for the owner, like the franchisor, like, cool, you just bought the you again, I don't know how one goes about buying a franchise, like, where it's like, "Oh, I'm going to open this, it is my business," but, like, which leads me to your budget where that like, the shared cost, like, that's gonna be, I would say, is a pro because that market, like, they'll be like, "Here's your budget, here's money for emails, here's money to run ads," and, like, again, that I would
Yeah.
tell you, so if you are for like, but, like, you have that power to go buy like, the Facebook manager, ads manager, and Jessica and I have said this multiple times, like, we love and admire and respect those people so much because it's not I. Like,
Mhm.
there's just but anyways, so, okay, so I'd say brand recognition, your shared cost/budget, um like, scalability? Should we say that? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and, like, obviously the support, like, you're gonna get the support, like, you're all in
Yeah.
I'm not pivoting here, but this is one thing that I feel that I've learned from, and I haven't worked with any franchise marketing, but something I feel if I had that I would take with me, or that I think anybody new starting out could learn from somebody who's in franchise marketing, is that the pictures and the images that they provide you, so again, this is a pro, where it's like they are providing you marketing materials, and this is something that I've actually kind of ripped a page out of. So for the boutique, we have wholesale accounts. So it's not franchise, but we
Mhm.
have all these beautiful images that I have started to send to the boutiques who carry our products so that then they don't have to worry. Like, because yeah, like they've
Yeah.
gotten our
Yeah.
product and they could go out and take a photo shoot. But I understand as a social media marketer, like how costly that is. And also, I personally want to make sure as the marketing manager for the boutique that the picture that they're sharing of our product is on brand, but still on brand for them, so like sending them multiple things, which kind of
Mhm.
leads me to cons. So I know, and I feel like what I've heard is that you do like there are still a lot of brand guide, like there's rules. You're going to have limited control, which I feel like maybe sometimes um maybe paralyzes people who do the franchise marketing, where it's like, and
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but it's like everybody's like, "How do I make this local? How do I make this local?" And it's like, it's gonna be the
Yep.
reels. It's gonna be your stories by hopping on those trends and tapping into um,
Mhm.
local slang, local that was kind of poor. Like, that's just me going on
Yeah.
a rant about, like, your captions and how you can, like, localize that. But, um
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I think you're spot on because I think one thing that most people don't think about, like, if we're thinking about Instagram, like, you don't have to have like, creating a strategy for like, an Instagram strategy is specific to what is the purpose of stories? What is
Mhm.
the purpose of Reels? What is the purpose of the feed? And it doesn't have to be the same thing for everything. It can be different things. Like you can, for lack of better words, fulfill your brand obligations for corporate on the feed, but you can have fun and have personality on stories. And so I think there's just a lot of ways that you can stay on brand but create more content for a franchise. I think the other thing that I wanted to add, because I know we wanted to share like some effective strategies that I think goes beyond like your story or your real strategies. I think a beautiful, beautiful upsell for any franchise like marketing client that you have. Again, it's going to vary between on the franchise and those like tools and systems that they put in place, which unfortunately you you can use, but I think you also do have, from my experience, I think you have the freedom to also use other things as well. I think you should really, really consider your like email and like SMS marketing. And so if
Oh,
you're a
yeah.
marketer who has experience with email or SMS, that is a beautiful upsell that you can have for your clients, because what you're doing on social media is very localized, and obviously any franchise location is going to have a local like client base. Have them in an email list, have them to be able to send text message to, that way you can really target like the local content that you're sharing, and you can really drive kind of any initiative that you have, whether it be like a water cooler, you need more members, maybe it's driving more sales, or maybe it's a restaurant, maybe it's a local Chick-fil-A and you're hosting like a really fun events for Halloween or October or spooky season or whatever it is. But there's always like different things that you should do. And I think really leveraging like email and SMS for that client is going to be super important, because one thing that I think from my experience, and I'm not grouping every franchisee owner into this, but the ones that I do know, I think they're really great at business and operations.
Yeah.
I don't think they're that great at marketing. And I'm not saying everyone, but I'm saying majority that I've met and have talked to. I don't think they're that great marketers. I think they go the franchise route because they get that copy and play, plug and play formula and foundation. And so that's where I feel like you get the creative freedom. Obviously, you have those parameters that you have to go with, but there's a lot of things that you can do to really make sure that it's consistent and cohesive. The other thing I'll add to, I don't know if this is helpful or not, but if you're getting content from, like, you work with a franchisee, they have a, corporate or HQ or whoever, if you're getting content, you don't actually, I mean, if you don't want to use that content, because, like, if our water cooler, if it's not that great, can you use that content as like a basis, as like a filming guideline or like a mood
Mm.
board or something that then you can then, oh, that sparks an idea. I can design this better. Or I can recreate this video with the, massage therapists that are in this spa, or, whatever, like whatever the case is. I think it could be a really good guideline for you to kind of give you a leg up on creating content, if that makes sense.
And I would even say that would I feel like for me personally, let's say you and I were, like, managing this F45 or just, like, any franchise in general, like,
Yeah.
it would be my goal, personally, as a marketer, to create content that's so good that the main F45, the main, European Wax Center, all because they have everybody has, like, those main accounts, and then obviously you have the
Yeah.
localized ones, but to try and guess what? So they to get regrammed or them to share that story, that reel, like, that's when like, "Oh, corporate sees
Yep.
me. Corporate sees how well
Yep.
I'm marketing this brand," and, like, who knows? That could open up doors for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not to
Oh,
like,
that's it. Yep.
that's not to poo-poo on, like, the corporate marketing team, but I that's where I will say maybe that's a con or just sometimes
Yeah.
where the corporate marketing team, like, again, they have this big picture and, they're leaving it up to the franchisee to kind of, like, take on that market where they're like, "Hey, we've given you our tools." But I think sometimes that can get there's some disconnect where sometimes the corporate marketing girly pops and fellas, may learn from
Mhm.
the localized marketers as well.
Yeah.
And, like, that
Yeah,
could work
absolutely.
beautifully to come that's only gonna benefit the whole franchise as a whole.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah. I think that's a great point. The thing that I wanna piggyback off that and share a really, really quick story because I know we are getting, like, limited to time, so if you guys made it this far, thank you for listening, but quick story time is that a couple of months ago, I connected with a potential new client on a discovery call who was opening up a franchise location, and she was waiting for all of the permits and approvals for the build out for the location. And the estimate was, I think, 3 months after our phone call was when the store would open. We're now 3 months past that date. She still hasn't opened, and she never signed on as a client because, in my head, my strategy for like how we would work together would be okay, you're coming to this local area. It's a brand new franchise. It's also a little bit interesting of a service, so it's kind of like educating around that. Let's build an email list, let's build a text list, let's build a following, let's educate on the product or on the service and really focus on local community.
Mhm.
And I think especially because the local community that they're in is it's smaller. It's very it's a big tourism as well, so that's a really big piece to consider. And also too with everything that's happened over the past couple of weeks, unfortunately with a couple of hurricanes in the area, like the community is coming together like now more than ever. So that's where I feel like that community piece is so important. So we have not worked together and actually she was a lead who just ghosted. I haven't talked to her since the discovery call and no response at all to any follow-ups. I did talk in Instagram DMs, but I don't really consider that like as a
No.
conversation. I was just like, "Hey, like you guys haven't opened yet?" She's like, "No, blah blah blah." So, anyway, I still consider it ghosting. Anyway, she's been posting what corporate has sent to all the locations. That is basically worded, the messaging is come in and book this service. Well, the problem is they're not open at all. They don't have an opening date. And you can't book a service because they're not open. There's no one doing the service. But every post for the last 6 months is book book an appointment, come in, do this service. And so a part of me is like, I want to reach out, but again, I feel like I'm being ghosted. But a part of me is like, why are we why is every post having a call to action to book a service? Well, I know because it's not created by her, it's created by the corporate team. But again, why does
Um,
corporate not have a
mm,
pre-store launch collection of posts that they would create? Like
yeah.
they wouldn't even have anything that would say, "Oh, we're opening in 2 months, 1 month, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week," whatever the case is, it's just, "Hey, book this, book that, book this. Did you know about this? Did you know about that?" Like, what? And it's interesting, but the account has grown, and it's gotten when I look at the followers, there's some local businesses who are following, but it's primarily other locations that are all across the states for this business. They're all just kind of interacting with each other. And it's very interesting because to me, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but connecting with locations I saw there was some in New England, there's some in Arizona, there's some all over. Like, though, that's not the local audience, right?
Mm-mm.
And those franchise owners need to get local business into theirs. So, anyway, I just think it's so interesting. I did see some posts that were created that I don't know, I would assume maybe by the client and not by the corporate team that were, hey, join our email list to be the first to know when we open up. So, I joined the email list because I'm very curious. I'm a very
Right.
curious person. And I joined the email list, and the confirmation email, which first of all, it's not an email list opt-in, it's a contact form. So the messaging is contact us and we'll get in touch. The email that comes after that is, "Oh, we got your contact request. We'll be in touch within 24 hours." And so it's very, very interesting. But again, these are all things that I say not to really, kind of like talk down on this client by any means, but it's such an important thing to think about. Like, this is what your local audience, who probably wants to come get a service there, is thinking and how they're encountering your business. So, all that to say, sometimes that corporate playbook probably doesn't make sense. I understand, kind of going back to our water cooler, like, you want to build a following, you want to build membership into your business. You open the doors and business is flocking, but you don't build it and people come. You build something great and you connect with those people, and then they will come. So that's my story
Well,
time tangent
and
at a
because it's
cliff.
also word of mouth. It's also word like, something like that where it's, like,
Yeah.
again, where, like you just said, how did you just phrase that? You can't build it and they will
Like,
come, like, right? That's
right. Right. You
eh,
yeah, you build it and connect with people, and
nurture
then
the
they will come.
relation like,
Like,
where it's, like, again, you have to
yeah.
start nurturing them, and
Yeah.
that's also where it's, like, how many times is somebody that would worry me, though, where it's, like, how many posts are they posting? Because it's, like, it takes I think I forget what the statistic is, but, like, 7 times, where it's, like, the 7th time they might, like, actually sign up, or,
Yeah.
like, so, like, you're just to me, that's a lot of really annoyed and angry people, like, waiting to
Yeah.
happen, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, and I get it. I get, like, permits take forever, opening a
Right.
store. I've never opened a physical store, so I don't even know all the things you need to do, but yeah, it's very, very interesting, and I wish it were done differently. That was certainly not in my head, like, if she signed on as a client now. I will say, a part of me, you know, when we had that conversation at the end of spring, start of summer, like, I am glad that, like, we didn't actually move forward with that relationship, because I don't actually know if I could have sustained this long for an opening. Like, that's a
Mm.
very long launch, like 6 plus months. So, all that to say is it really is interesting, kind of, when it comes down to it, this one. So I'll keep everyone updated on it. I will say, I think the last thing that I want to add, that I'll add to this episode as well, is what I would have suggested to do would be completely different. They offer a service that is it's kind of different. It's similar to waxing, but it's not waxing, and that's kind of where I'll leave it at, because I don't want to give too much detail. But a piece of that is, you know, there's so much more that you could share to build a community than what you're selling. I think sometimes we get so wrapped up with, I've got to sell, I've got to make money on social media, I have to push my product, I have to push my service. But in reality, when I think about it, because of the nature of this service, and I think about, like, my time at European Wax Center, it's very, similar but different. People who come in, they come in because they love their esthetician, and you're getting waxed. Some waxes are very personal. You want to have a
Mhm.
very personal connection with your esthetician, right? We all do.
Mhm.
We all want a personal connection with our service provider. And so when I think about it in that way, I would do a much different approach to social media. I would do a very long, like, meet the team series. Let me know everything I need to know about coming into this place and getting vulnerable and getting the service, and let me meet who's going to be doing it. And so I think it can open the door for, like, really fun content as well. That can be shared. No one really needs to know about the specifics of the ingredients of the wax. I mean, is that nice to know? Every wax and different styles like that are different, and we all care about clean ingredients, but we don't need to hear it for 6 plus months. Kind of to Maddie's
No.
point, like, you can only talk so much about that. So, and the other part of that as well, I think too, when I see that content is everyone kind of knows, like, whether they need to be waxed or not, like, right? You think about if you're going for, like, an eyebrow wax or any, like, facial wax, like, you know when you need to get that done. That's not
Mhm.
something that you need to read in, like, an educational post on social media, or,
So true.
or right, like, it needs to happen. So it's very interesting that this is the content that corporate puts out. I think should it should be more lifestyle content, and I think that
Mm.
really plays into, like, kind of Maddie's point around stories and reels and leveraging that content as a
And
franchise.
that's why I'm always curious too, because like, this budget sometimes so obviously, I, I don't do I know I keep bringing F45 up because that was, like, the water cooler, but,
Yeah.
uh, I just I'm, like, looking at their Instagram now and just why the influencers, like, I that's my thing, where it's like, I feel like I do follow so, okay, we're bringing it back to my like, the gym that I know and love in Charleston, which is The Works, and
Mhm.
even again, not necessarily a franchise, like, it's local to Charleston, but let's pretend The Works was a franchise, right? Like, I always laugh because so this is not me critiquing theirs, like me wanting them to hire me as their social media manager. So if they're listening, Sarah girl, the owner. Anyways, but they like where it's like they do a great job of highlighting the team and whatnot. And they really don't highlight the work. Like, yes, they highlight the workouts, but like, if you were to go to their tagged post, right, you're gonna get that community. You are literally like, everybody who works out there, we love including that in our day in the lives and all that stuff, and for me,
Yeah.
I kinda wish they featured those more on the page because that to
Yeah.
me is also helping me get to know the girls in my class, and, like, not that I'd be
Yeah.
like, say hi to them, but at least now I know their name. Like, at least now I know like, I've
Yeah.
seen
Yeah.
you, and, like, I again, where similar to my weekend thought and, like, what we were talking about in the beginning, would I say I'm just gonna acknowledge that I know her. I'm just gonna acknowledge and maybe, like, if I
Mhm.
were feeling courageous, I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I saw your reel, like, it was so cute," and, like, leave it at that.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
that's where I feel like sometimes it's missing too, where it's like, seriously,
Yeah.
have and that's with I feel like we've talked this is a common theme we've talked about even with salons where it's like, let the clients, let the actual community, because user-generated content we are living in a world right now where user-generated content is what the people wanna see,
Yeah.
in my
Absolutely.
opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. 100%. I think that's such a good point. Like, bringing in the community into the content that you're sharing already, and it's already going to step into the lifestyle content that people want to see on social media. And I think sometimes, like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like 2024. I know it's been an interesting year. If we talk economy, election year, like all the things we've covered on the
Mhm.
podcast this year thus far, but people are selling more than ever. And I
Yeah.
don't know about you, but I don't think people are buying like they
No.
used to. And I know when I like the way I buy things is like, oh, I wake up one morning, I'm like, I need this. Or I see something that piques my interest. Like, I see a day in the life of, oh, this girly pop is in my workout class, and oh my gosh, she's going to the store, she's buying this and that. Sold. Like, you're like, I'm maybe I'm more easily influenced than others,
No, no,
but
no,
that
same.
being said, like, you connect with someone, you see that lifestyle content, and then you see like, oh, they're buying this, they're doing this service, they're paying for this, and people want to pay for that and be a part of that too. So I think that's a really good point.
Because it is lifestyle. Like, it's like, "Oh, you're not just selling me the membership, you're not just selling me the franchise, you're selling me to me, franchise marketing, you guys are the ones, like, who have all the analytics that one needs to, like I could tell you what time your clientele like, your this persona wakes up at." Okay, maybe not that extreme,
Mhm.
but, like, I guarantee you have access to the Facebook groups that they're liking, that, like,
Yeah.
the creepy, like, FBI stats, like, you guys have that, so, like, play into that, use that to your advantage. If you're gonna be creepy, just use
Yeah.
it, you know?
Yes. Yeah, own it. Own the creepy no, but
Yeah.
but but if
Own the
you ha
cookies that you have.
Yep. Yes, 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 and on that note, that is episode 102 of #managed. But I think that's a great place for us to close up on this episode. Anything else that you'd add, Maddie, before we end?
Mm, no, I
Okay,
think
awesome. Well, if you're listening to this, let us know. Do you market for a franchise, like corporate or local location? We'd love to know. Feel free to either write us at #manage on Instagram, jump in the Facebook group, #manage collective, do a post in there, vote on Spotify, dial in, call
the
in
hotline.
to the
Yep.
the hashtag hotline. Let us know. We can do another water cooler franchise marketing edition, but we'd love to hear from you guys. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening and being a part of our wonderful community. And we'll be back next week with another episode of #managed. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you made it this far, I think we've officially become internet besties. You can always call into the #hotline and say hello, leave a review, or ask your burning questions.
Make sure you follow, rate, and review the podcast wherever you're listening from. Subscribe to the Social Club newsletter for our weekly email, and shoot us a DM over at #managed on Instagram, letting us know what your biggest takeaway was from this episode.